Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Dakshineshware Thakur Sri Ramakrishna Tritiya Darshan. The third meeting of M with Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. So the most enigmatic story in the Gospel, the Mahut Narayan and the Hathi Narayan. The Mahut, the driver on the elephant, was repeatedly telling this disciple, "Hey, get away, the elephant has gone mad." But this disciple was taught by the Guru that everything is God, all is only Narayana. So he was standing there quietly, praising the Narayana in the elephant. And the elephant came and caught him by the tusk and threw him out. And he was almost lying unconscious and dead, not fully. A little consciousness was remaining. Then he was taken by his disciples to the Guru. The Guru told him, the Mahat Narayan cried out, "Why did you not move away?" "Sir, you told me everything is Narayana, and therefore I was constantly praising the Narayana in the elephant." Then the Guru said, "I told you that all is Narayana, of course, but the Mahut was crying out, 'Move away,' he was also Narayana. Why did you not listen to the cry of the Mahut Narayana, the dictates of the Mahut Narayana?" It is said that Swami Vivekananda explained this parable of Sri Ramakrishna, 3 days and nights without food and drink and sleep. And he showed how this simple story is a resolution of a highly complex philosophical puzzle, controversial riddle, the controversy raging over ages and aeons. What is that controversy? This controversy is free will versus predetermination. Is free will the fundamental, or everything is already predetermined? Fate, inflexible, unchangeable, predetermined fate, versus the capacity of the individual being to be able to decide freely out of his own will. Shadi Nichha Banam Niyati. This is a very complex issue which was even debated, discussed, and very interesting solutions have been given by so many saints. For example, the great saint of Arunachala, Ramana Maharshi, he said beautifully, everything in the world is predetermined and programmed, because the Prakriti is all that is seen as an object. Any objectification is of Prakriti. Beginning with Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 gross elements in the Sankhya, ending with Prakriti, the 24 cosmic principles are all in the realm of Prakriti, duality, Dvaita Prapancha. And Prakriti being Jada, there is no space for any individual will which can change unless there is a consciousness. So he said, everything in the world is determined. The only freedom that God has given us is not to identify with the Prakriti or the body. The immediate manifestation of the Prakriti that we see is this body. That's a loka, the world, is sometimes taken by some of the interpreters as the body. Anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. The Bhagavad Gita. Having obtained this world, loka, which is anitya, impermanent, asukha, miserable, bhajasvamam, meditate upon me, think of me, worship me. Sridhara Swami, the great commentator, the Tikakara, he says in his gloss, Tika, Loka is a Sharira. Having obtained this body, which is anitya, impermanent, asukha, miserable, bhajasvamam, think of me, meditate upon me, worship me. Anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Immediately what you see of nature is your own body. So Ramana Maharshi said beautifully, everything in nature is predetermined. And if you reduce all of nature to your body, everything in body is programmed. Every cell, every DNA in your body is completely, totally, inflexibly, unalterably programmed. The only freedom which you have is not to identify with the body. This is Vedanta. Vedanta says, don't try to meddle with Prakriti. Yoga says, you conquer Prakriti, the inner Prakriti and the outer Prakriti being the body, the inner Prakriti being the Antakarana, the mind, the buddhi, and so on. By conquest of this Prakriti, you attain to freedom or kaivalya, cut off from Prakriti. Vedanta says, you de-identify, disentangle yourself from Prakriti. Don't identify with the bodies and suffer. We suffer because we identify with the body. When the body suffers, we suffer. When the mind suffers, we suffer. When the buddhi is bruised, we weep. For example, if somebody else is wounded or hurt, is ill, we may sympathize even empathize, but we don't suffer the agony in the same way he or she does. Because we don't identify with somebody else's body. Then why should I suffer when my body suffers? When my mind is miserable? Because I think it's my body, my mind. It's the I which hooks on to the body and the mind through my. I is aham, my is mama. So the ahankara, the I-ness, and the mamakara, the mindness, these two are responsible for my suffering. This is the conclusion of Vedanta. Everything is Prakriti. Prakriti is completely programmed, inflexibly programmed. You can't change anything there. But you have the freedom, a small space given to you, of not identifying with Prakriti. So that is the free will that you are given to you. This is called the wisdom. This is called the dhi. This is called viveka. The discernment between the real and the unreal, the eternal and the ephemeral, nitya anitya vastu viveka, sadasad viveka. So this viveka is a quality which is given to you by which you refuse to identify with the body. So this is a story of Sri Ramakrishna, the Mahut Narayana and the Hathi Narayana. The driver god on the elephant and the elephant god. Both of them are gods, both of them are Narayanas. But you should listen to the Hathi Narayana or the Mahut Narayana according as whether you are identified with Prakriti or you are not identified with the Prakriti. It's a very, very subtle, complex, deep and profound lesson in philosophy. In science, particularly in the rise of the new physics, the 20th century, when the quantum theory came up, the duality of the nature of light, whether light is a particle, light is a wave-particle dualism, this question came up of what is the interpretation of quantum mechanics. One interpretation was the waves which are associated with matter, called the matter waves, are not physical waves, but waves of probability. What does it mean? That means you can't exactly say that the position of the electron has to be this, exactly, precisely. It could be this or it could be something else. It may be. This may be is called the Syadvada in the Jaina philosophy. The probability of the electron being there can be measured. And the famous uncertainty principle of Heisenberg showed that the position and the momentum of an electron cannot be precisely, exactly, and simultaneously be measured. There is an uncertainty, and this uncertainty can't be conquered. It is not a defect of the measuring apparatus. It is not that if you have a more precise measuring instrument, the uncertainty will become less. No. There is an intrinsic, inbuilt mechanism in the way things are which does not allow you to know exactly, precisely, and simultaneously the position and the momentum of an electron, except within the limits of a certain uncertainty, indeterminacy principle. So this story is so profound that it solves an extraordinary problem, even in daily life. If you leave out philosophy, take it as a simple story to be applied in our daily life. How many situations come when you do not exactly know what you should do? Whether you should listen to the Hati Narayan or the Mahut Narayan. So this Mahut Narayana, the driver Narayana who is driving the elephant, this is a small voice which is constantly rising in the depths of your being and telling you what you should do, what you should not do. This voice is called the voice of Viveka. This is called Dhi, Prajna, and Medha. The whole exercise in spiritual life and even in worldly life is to sharpen this Viveka. Make this Viveka as keen, as sharp, as deep as possible. This Viveka should be extremely fine and sharpened. The Kathopanishad, that's a beautiful verse. This Atman in all beings is not seen, is not expressed, is not revealed. It is deep within, hidden as it were, but it can be seen and realized how? By an extremely sharp, refined, purified, concentrated buddhi. This is called the dhi, which the Gayatri Mantra talks about, dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Yesha sarveshu bhuteshu gudhotmana prakashate drishyate tvagriya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadarshibhi. Drishyate tu agriya buddhya. Agriya buddhya means very, very sharp, purified, concentrated buddhi, called vivek. It is not the intellect we ordinarily conceive. A person is intelligent or is intellectual if he reads a lot of books and has a lot of information. No. This is a very, very subtle, intuitive faculty by which you penetrate deeper. And if that is developed and is fully established in a person's heart, then he will be guided by that buddhi. The whole of spiritual life and the worldly life is to be guided by that buddhi which is sharpened, purified. The Gayatri Mantra talks about Dhiyo yo na prachodayat. May that Dhi, Pragya, Medha be kindled and awakened in us. That is dormant. That is the space which God has given us to operate. Rest of it is completely controlled by nature. So there's a wonderful story in the gospel, as Swami Vivekananda said to his friend, volumes can be written with one sentence of Sri Ramakrishna. And this is a story he explained for 3 days and nights without food and drink and sleep, it is said. গুরু তখন বললেন, বাবা হাতি নারায়ণ আসছিলেন বটে তা সত্য, কিন্তু বাবা মাহুত নারায়ণ তো তোমায় বারণ করেছিলেন। যদি সবই নারায়ণ, তবে তার কথা বিশ্বাস করলে না কেন? মাহুত নারায়ণের কথাও শুনতে হয়। সকলের হাস্য। Very interesting statement. Of course, I did instruct you that the Hathi is also Narayana, the elephant is Narayana, to be sure. But the Mahut who was riding on the elephant and driving the elephant, he was also Narayana. Why did you not listen to the call of the Mahut Narayana, the driver Narayana? সকলের হাস্য, everybody laughs. মাহুত নারায়ণের কথাও শুনতে হয়. So you should know that the Mahut Narayana should also be given importance in daily life. He gives another beautiful example. It's such simple examples and similes with which the Kathamrita is replete. শাস্ত্রে আছে apo Narayana, jal Narayan. Apa means water, waters in fact, because up in Sanskrit is nitya bahuvachana. There is no singular for up, it is water. In English also we say waters. Apo Narayana. But the waters are Narayana, God. Jal Narayan. That's why we pay great respect to water. Before we take bath, we have been taught you bow down before water because going to purify you, clean your body. কিন্তু কোনো জল ঠাকুর সেবায় চলে, আবার কোনো জল আচানো, বাসন মাজা, কাপড় কাচা কেবল চলে, কিন্তু খাওয়া দাওয়া বা ঠাকুর সেবা চলে না. Of course, water is Narayana, but some water of a particular variety which has been kept purified, carefully preserved for worship. When you do worship, the water that you use should be very, very pure and carefully preserved. So some water is used for Thakur Seva, for the worship of God. আবার কোনো জল আচানো, বাসন মাজা, কাপড় কাচা কেবল চলে. Some water you wash your clothes and you clean the vessels and so on. কিন্তু খাওয়া দাওয়া বা ঠাকুর সেবায় চলে না. But that kind of water cannot be used for cooking or for worship of God. Certain varieties of water are used for cooking, washing clothes, drinking, different varieties are used. Sometimes we see a tap not for drinking. That water is not meant for drinking. But is it less Narayana for that? It is Narayana, it is water, Apo Narayana. But different varieties of Narayana according to their usefulness, according to their Shakti. This is one very important teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, which combines the spiritual truth, which is transcendental, with the truth which is applicable in daily life. The transcendental truth, the supreme truth, when you apply it to daily life, it has to be very carefully modified to suit daily life. Ramakrishna used to say, তিনি বিভু রূপে সর্বত্র আছেন বটে কিন্তু শক্তি বিশেষ. As Vibhu, as vast and infinite, he is of course everywhere. But the difference is in the manifestation of power, Shakti. This question was asked of him by Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Vidyasagar is a very great scholar, but even he perhaps missed this point, as Ramakrishna points out. Vidyasagar asks Ramakrishna, Ishwar কাউকে কম শক্তি কাউকে বেশি শক্তি দিয়েছেন? Has God given less power to some and more power to somebody else? Ramakrishna smiles and says, of course. Otherwise, how can he explain that one person has so much of energy and strength that he defeats 10 people in war, and some people are so weak that they're simply smashed by even a single person? Then he says, why is it that we have come to see you? You have not grown two horns, but you have the manifestation of daya, compassion, unselfishness. And feeling for others. You have certain very elevated divine qualities. The manifestation of these qualities is so much in you that we have come to see you. Vibhurupe Sarvatra Achen is a vast, infinite reality. He is omnipresent, present everywhere. But individual manifestation has to be accounted for Shakti Vishesh. The manifestation of power may be different. So here you should realize the idea of Brahman and Shakti. Brahman is transcendental, although it is also immanent as omnipresent. And Shakti is the power of Brahman, and there is a difference in the manifestation of Shakti in different places. When you see your face in a mirror, which is very clean, you have a very clear picture. When you see your face in water, it is not that clear, but still you can see. You can see your face in water which is unclean, dirty. You can't see the face clearly at all. So it depends on where the manifestation takes place. In manifestation, of course, there are differences. But as Brahman, all are the same reality. Don't make the mistake that everybody is same. Equality, samatva, samya, is possible only at the level of the spirit, at the level of Brahman. The manifested Jagat, where you have to contend with the body, the mind, the intellect, there has to be differences. Somebody is more intelligent, is a genius. Somebody is dull. Somebody has a very strong physique, very powerful, strong. Somebody is extremely weak. Somebody's mind is very sharp. He can remember things. He can operate very intelligently in difficult situations. And somebody else gets confused. His mind becomes completely blocked when he faces certain difficult situations. Why? Because manifestation is different in Prakriti. So this is very, very important ideas Ramakrishna constantly emphasized. We see two great immortal books, the Ramakrishna Kathamrita and the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, both of them words of God, Sri Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, and Kathamrita, Sri Ramakrishna, which discusses both Brahman, the transcendental and immanent, the supreme, the spiritual reality to be attained, realized, as well as the conduct of a spiritual aspirant in the world. This spiritual aspirant, the disciple of this great Guru, who taught God is everywhere, was focusing only on the transcendental, supreme Brahman aspect. But when you come to the Prakriti aspect, to be able to live in this world, you should know the manifestation of the Brahman through Shakti. So the importance of Shakti along with the Brahman is a great lesson, a spiritual truth which Ramakrishna emphasized. The Gita emphasizes this through the Trigunatmika Prakriti. Starting from the second chapter, when he talks about the highest spiritual transcendental truths, when he began the teaching by saying, the Ajatavada, nothing was born, nothing is created, nothing ultimately happens. Nasato vidyate bhavo nabhavo vidyate sata ubhayor vidrushtontas tattadarshibhi. Starting from that Ajatavada, Sri Krishna takes you to a journey in which you actually see the manifestation of Prakriti through Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Devasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. 16, 17, 18 chapters. Most of them together form life in this world. On the one hand, you have the transcendental reality of Brahman or Atman within you, which is the ultimate object of realization. But you have to be practical in daily life because you have to contend with the Prakriti, power, Shakti, for which you should know how Sattva, Rajas, Tamas operate. So Brahman and Shakti, both of them have to be together taken into account to be able to live a happy life in this world. A fulfillment will come to you when you know Brahman as well as Shakti. And Sri Ramakrishna also emphasized the moment you are in the body, in the mind, operating through the buddhi, you are in the realm of Shakti. Shakti Relaka, the jurisdiction of Shakti. When you are in the relative world, world of space, time and causation, you have to follow the rules of the game of Shakti. You can't bypass Shakti. Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekananda, all of them were taught by Shakti, Divine Mother, the great spiritual truths and how we can operate in both the worlds of the transcendental and the immanent, the absolute and the relative, the infinite and the finite. And the threshold of these two is called the Bhava Mukha, which is called the state of Vijnana. As Ramakrishna says in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, in the Kathamrita, where you operate from both these worlds according to necessity. And Ramakrishna was permanently stationed in this Bhavamukha state as commanded, as commissioned by the Divine Mother, Bhavatarini Kali. We Bhavamukhe Thak. Remain in the state of Bhavamukha. Such a profound meaning is there in these statements. Apo Narayan, a Shakti Vishesh. Everything as Vibhu is all pervading and infinite, but Shakti Vishesh, as manifestation of power, you have to contend with differences. Temni sadhu, ashadhu, bhakta, abhakta, সকলেরই হৃদয়ে নারায়ণ আছেন. Narayana, God, dwells in the hearts of all beings, wicked or good, devoted or otherwise. Lord remains seated in the hearts of all of them. Even in the heart of a wicked man there is God. In the heart of a saint there is a God. The same God present in all beings in the same way. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthidam ishwaram. The Bhagavad Gita. Paramam samyamupaiti, samya, sameness. But the manifestation, there are differences. Shakti Vishesh. Kintu ashadu abhakto দুষ্ট লোকের সঙ্গে ব্যবহার চলে না. Of course, it is true that God resides in the hearts of all beings, a saint and a sinner, a devoted person and a person without devotion, and a wicked man and a holy man. But you should not mix freely. You should be extremely careful in mixing with a person who is wicked and a hater of God. অসাধু অভক্ত দুষ্ট লোকের সঙ্গে ব্যবহার চলে না, মাখামাখি চলে না. Makhamachi means you go and hug him, you become so intimate with him and so on. Don't become too intimate with a wicked person, just like don't become too intimate with a snake or with a wild animal. You may have some pets which are mild, but even then you should be extremely careful in dealing with these people who are wicked and which are evil. কারো সঙ্গে কেবল মুখের আলাপ পর্যন্ত চলে, আবার কারো সঙ্গে তাও চলে না. With some people, you can just converse with them, have a dialogue, talk to them. Hello, how are you? Sometimes you call them. In English we say hello relationship. Nowadays, of course, the young people, the millennials and the Gen Z, they say hi relationship. Hi, how are you? There's a very casual kind of relationship, but you don't become intimate. ওইরূপ লোকের কাছে তাফাতে থাকতে হয়. Such people you should be extremely careful. He says you, of course, the same God is present in the tiger and the lion, but you don't go and embrace a tiger or a lion. A wicked person, a person of untruth, unprincipled, always keep a distance. Have a friendly relationship on the surface, but be extremely careful not to become very intimate. This is a great lesson which is given by this very simple parable of the Mahut Narayana and the Hathi Narayana, the driver of the elephant, who is also God, and the elephant itself, which is also God. And he also gives the example of water. Apo Narayana, water is God, but some varieties of water can be used for worship of God, some for cooking, some for washing clothes, some for bathing, and so on. So in the manifestation, there are differences, Shakti Visesh. Ekjana Bhakta. One devotee asks a simple question, মহাশয় যদি দুষ্ট লোকে অনিষ্ট করতে আসে বা অনিষ্ট করে তাহলে কি চুপ করে থাকা উচিত? It's all very simple, common questions which arise in your mind constantly. When you read the Upanishads, it's all high-flown philosophy, transcendentalism. You are the Nitya Shuddha Mukta Swarupa, Arupam Avyayam Tatharasam Nityam Agandhavachayat. It says it is beyond Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasagandha, infinite, Nitya Shuddha Mukta Ananda Swarupa. All that is wonderful and grand. But when you live in this world, you have to contend with and live with people of various kinds. Suppose there are wicked people, dangerous people, অনিষ্ট করতে আসে, if they come to harm you, অথবা অনিষ্ট করে, if they actually harm you, then in that case, should you just keep quiet or should you react? This is also a very interesting question which always puzzles us. How much can you react? Jesus the Christ told his disciples, the sannyasa dharma, for a sannyasa, no reaction. Swami Vivekananda was asked this question. What should we do in such a case? Swamiji said, non-resistance for a sannyasin and for a householder, self-defense. But sannyasins in the present day are also in the world. They have to live in the world. They have to do some work, some kind of philanthropy and so on, in which case they also have to mix with all kinds of people. Then what do you do? Then he says, চুপ করে থাকা উচিত কি? Should we keep quiet or should we react? Sometimes we think, oh, that fellow doesn't understand, he is useless, he is so wicked, but I can't stoop down to his level, so let me bear with it. If you have that kind of faith in God, you go and cry to God, oh God, why is this fellow treating me like this? I have taken refuge in you. You please protect me, which was done by Draupadi, for example. What kind of torture she was put to. She was crying, asking each one of her 5 husbands to protect her. Bhishma was there, Dronacharya was there. Oh, Bhishma Pitamaha, you protect me. Drona, you protect me. Nobody came to her rescue. Finally, she cried to Narayana, Sri Krishna, Bho Kripalaya Hare Bho Pandavanam Sakhe Kwasi Kwasi Suyodhanadabahatam Bho Rakshamamaturam Ityukto Kshaya Vastra Samsritatanum Yopalayadu Draupadim Artratranaparayana Bhagavan Narayano Me Hari. Bho Krishnachyuta, Bho Kripalaya, Bho Hare. Oh Krishna, Achyuta, embodiment of compassion, Kripalaya, oh Hari. Please protect me, please protect me. I am helpless, Aturam. I am afflicted, I am miserable, I am helpless. I am a helpless woman, and these hounds, the devils and demons in the form of human beings, are coming and torturing me. The moment she cried and cried, that reached Sri Krishna's ears, and he came and blessed her with infinite amount of cloths. The Bhagavata story of the Gajendra Moksha. Gajendra was a king elephant. He came to take bath in a river, and a crocodile came and caught the feet of this elephant. The elephant became completely helpless and weak. Blood started gushing out, and he could not move. He didn't know what to do. Went on calling various kinds of gods, Indra, Varuna. Please protect me, please protect me. Nobody came to his rescue, could protect him. Then he cried to Narayana. Perhaps he took a small flower which was moving in the river. Then with that river, it was offering to Narayana and said, "Oh Narayana, come. Nakragrastabadam samudhrutagaram brahmadayo bhosuraha palyantamidi deenavakyakarinam. Deenavakyakarinam. Ityukto karinam." Then what did he do? Ma shocheti rarakshanakrahanane chakrayuda sridharaha Artratranaparayana Bhagavan Narayano Me Gatihi. Deveshu Ashakteshu. The Devatas could not protect him. Ma Shocheti. Don't be afraid, don't worry. I am here. He is Abhaya Pradana. The Lord gives you protection. Raraksha. He killed the crocodile with his chakrayudha and then released this Gajendra and gave it moksha. Even an ordinary animal is protected and released from the bondage of samsara by the grace of Hari. Believe in this. These are not stories. These are given in the Puranas as ideals for us to follow. This is a beautiful hymn, stotra, attributed to Shankaracharya, Artratrana Narayana Stotram. Artha, afflicted, miserable, Trana, protected, Narayana. Narayana, the Supreme Being, is the only person who can protect you from arti, from affliction, from suffering. Don't depend on human beings. Up to a point, they may help you, they may sympathize with you, empathize with you, like a mother does, or a husband and wife with your chaste husband and a pure wife, great affection to each other, up to a point, not beyond it. Nobody can exactly feel the pain and the misery that you are going through. Impossible. Who can feel it? The Antaryami, the Bhagavan who is within you, the Narayana, he knows. Artratranaparayana Bhagavan Narayano me gati. He is the only gati, he is the only refuge for all people who are artha, afflicted. And in the beginning of this stotra, he says, what is the proof? Is there any witness? Yes. 6 witnesses. Ete Shad Sakshina. Who are they? Prahladascha Vibhishanascha Karirat Panchalya Halya Dhruva. Prahlada, Vibhishana, Karirat, Panchali, Ahalya, Dhruva. These 5 witnesses vouch for the truth that Narayana alone comes to your rescue and saves you when you are in danger and you are miserable. Prahalada, how much of torture he was subjected to by his own father, Hiranyakashipu, because this boy will refuse to sing the glory and praise of Hiranyakashipu, but constantly was singing the praise of Narayana, the Supreme Being. How much torture. He threw him into a boiling water, and then he got a mad elephant to finish him, threw him into the fire. Every time he said, Narayana, Narayana. Believe in this. These are not stories. So what do you do when wicked people attack you, when people in the world who misunderstand you, spread all kinds of lies against you, scandalize you, calumnize you, vilify you, which was faced by even the greatest of saints like Swami Vivekananda and others? What do you do? Narayana is the only refuge. If you have that kind of tremendous faith, which is the prescription for sadhus and sannyasis. For the householders, Sri Ramakrishna gives a very different prescription in the form of the story of a serpent which became calm, completely harmless, thanks to a mantra that it received from a brahmachari, of a sadhu, and how he was tortured by wicked people, wicked boys, and how the sadhu told, the guru told the serpent, I asked you not to bite, but why did you not hiss? Forcefully na kano. But the householders, if somebody disturbs you, somebody tries to harm you, you hiss so that they don't come near you and harm you. They run away from you, but never pour poison or harm them or bite them. It's a very interesting story for practice in daily life. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampathृतविग्रहं Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.